Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us for our April Charter Chat. Next slide, please. So before we move into, actually, I want to do a little housekeeping before I talk about the agenda. We want to remind everyone to put themselves on mute and stay there. You can put questions into the chat, and at the end of today's Charter Chat, we will hopefully have time for questions and answers, but the chat is always a good place to go for questions, to send us your questions. As you probably noticed, this session is being recorded. When we go into breakout rooms, however, the sessions will not be recorded. And so today, in terms of our agenda, today's Wednesday, someone corrected me. Thank you. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Looking forward to the weekend. Today, before we move into breakout rooms, we're going to be discussing 2 questions from the previous Charter Chat. We'll have an update on several bills currently making their way through the legislature. We'll share some information about the April Advisory Commission on Charter Schools and the State Board of Education, and cover several hot topics related to program and one related to fiscal oversight. Next slide, please. As a reminder, CASI is a collaboration among the California Department of Education, the California Charter Professional Authorizers, and Santa Clara County Office of Education. So on this slide, you see the members of CASI who work at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. Next slide. And this slide shows us the California Charter Authorizing Professionals members of CASI. I also want to acknowledge Allison Ball from the California Department of Education. And today we have a special guest joining us, Michael Emmerman from FCMAT. Michael, can you give folks a wave? All right, next slide, please. So please, as always, we're going to ask you to rename yourself so that we can prepare for the breakout rooms. What we need is in the very front of your name, the breakout room that you're anticipating going to. So if you would like to join let me make sure I got this right, non-authorizers group, please put a 4 before your name. And then after your name, add the organization's name. I haven't done that yet, but you can see an example on the slide of how you should rename yourself. If you're planning to go to the southern region, put a 3 in front of your name. And if you're going to the central region, put a 2 in front of your name. And folks in the northern region will put a 1 in front of their name, and make sure you put the name of your organization behind your name. And Amy or Allison, can you drop that information into the chat? Thank you. All right, so next slide, please. We wanted to let you know that we get a lot of questions on a lot of topics, and some of the topics we don't have an answer for. So we work with folks at the appropriate divisions at CDE to come up with an answer. And we just want to let you know that we are not ignoring your questions. So we've developed this parking lot. And what we have in there currently are topics related to material revisions, which will be covered in our July quarterly training. We also have questions outstanding related to declining enrollment and teacher shortages, as well as academic growth models. So we're working on those answers. And if you have questions on material revisions, please be sure to join us in July for the quarterly regional training. Next slide, please. Last Charter Chat, we received a lot of questions about topics that we've already covered. And so we wanted to just bring this slide forth to show you topics that have been covered. And someone is going to be dropping into the chat the link where you can find the recorded sessions on these topics. So annual reports, credentials, the financial assistance from FCMAT, renewals and survival tips from 4 small authorizers. Those are all the topics that have been covered and are recorded and are archived on the CDE website. And hopefully someone dropped into the chat the link to get to those recordings. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Okay, there were several questions that have come up during the last charter chat or from the field, as we've said about here. We've got the answers on the resource pages, but we want to cover some of them here. The first one, a charter school qualifies for high tier and is seeking a 7-year term. Does the authorizer have the ability to give any 5 to 7 year renewals? Now, the advice given by the department is in their October 13th, 2002 CDE letter regarding renewals during the 2023-24 school year. It indicates all charter renewals will be treated as if schools are in the middle tier, as there is insufficient dashboard data to establish tier criteria. So the direction from the department is that an authorizer may not give a 5 to 7 term during the 2023-24 term. The second question on that same page was, can a new charter school get into an obligation, such as a lease, that goes past the point of the charter term? Is there a California Education Code that prohibits a charter school from getting into debt past their charter term? Again, the department is not aware of any statutory requirements that would require debt terms to be within the charter school's term, and frankly, if they're special facilities, they often go beyond. Next slide, please. Okay, 2 more. Do changes in federal requirements for dashboard alternative school status, DAS schools, impact DAS charter oversight and renewal requirements? Although the federal requirements for the CDE have changed regarding a DAS, the California state statutory renewal requirements for DAS schools have not changed. Ed Code Section 47607C7 requires that a chartering authority to consider DAS school performance on the dashboard, all performance indicators and local indicators, as well as alternative metrics. These metrics are to be mutually discussed and determined by a charter school and a chartering authority during its first year of the charter term. A chartering authority is to notify the DAS school of the alternative metrics to be used within 30 days of the meeting where the metrics are discussed and agreed to. Denial of a renewal of a DAS school must include written findings of fact supporting the supposition that the closure of the charter school is in the best interest of its pupils. Additional information on the CDE's website, a renewal of DAS charter schools, and the 2002 dashboard technical guide for DAS are two resources there. And then the last one is, this question came up during the charters chat last time, and we want to make sure we were clear on our response. What is the process for renewals that have been authorized by the State Board of Education? California Education Code EC 47605-9B allows a current State Board of Education authorized charter school to continue operating under SBE's oversight until the charter is up for renewal, at which point the charter school shall submit a renewal petition to the governing board of the school district within the boundaries of where the charter school is located. If the governing board of the school district denies the renewal petition, the charter school may submit a petition for renewal directly to the state board, which shall review the petition in accordance to Ed Code Section 47605. After the chartering authority has been delegated by the SBE, the charter school will need to update its chartering authority under the California School Directory by completing a change in authorizing district for a charter school applicant, which is available at the application for a county school district school CDS code. Those are my contributions for the day. Next slide for the next.
All right, so legislative updates. I will say that unfortunately, I can't give you the most up-to-date information because some of our bills are currently in committee and are having a hearing right now. Currently, SB 739 and SB 810 are set for hearings at 9 a.m. So it's going on right now. And SB 810 was amended, but they're still having their hearing this morning. SB 10 was moved to the Appropriations Committee, and they had their hearing on the 24th, and so they're still in committee. AB 984 is set for hearing today at 1:30. So there's lots of things going on in the legislature at this moment, and we're still following. You'll hear more information at the next charter chat once we find out what's going on with what's happening today. So next slide.
Thanks.
Next
Michelle.
slide.
Tom, you're up.
You're muted, Tom.
There, I was following instructions and then forgot that I had. On the state board, you'll recall that when we last met before the board, there were a lot of, we've started the process for the non-classroom based funding determinations, and there also was a notice of revocation proposed as to a board authorized school where the oversight now resides with LACO. Right now, on those things, a whole bunch, a huge number of the non-classroom based funding determinations now went to the ACCS. There were 142 that they were sort of in three buckets. Approval, the school asked for, even if we didn't meet the thresholds for the funding level requested, we have some mitigating circumstances, which under the law and the regs, the board considers. And there were 142 of the sort of go ahead, 36 of mitigating circumstances, which came out with recommendations, some to accept, some to approve. And there's also a third bucket, which is if you got your determination in a prior year, but you'd like the board to reconsider it because of new circumstances. So they're one of those. Those are all on their way now to the state board for its May 18th and 19th meeting. And on that notice of violation, at the last board meeting, they went ahead with the notice so that the clock starts running, the process starts, but they said it goes back to ACCS for them to consider from the school whether anything has changed or they've got a path forward financially. That one, the ACCS voted unanimously to have that proceed to the state board with the revocation. And then in addition, there's just a ton of information that the department, posts their annual information memoranda on various things. That includes the latest on the looking at new sources of verified data, which is the work that WestEd is doing for the department. So you can read about that at the link there. That is headed to the board this next month.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're moving into hot topics, which are relevant topics that you can use the information right now. Michelle.
Actually, it goes to Matt first.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
All right. First item is the charter school annual information update. The charter school annual information update for the 2023-24 school year is live. The information update provides charter schools with the opportunity to verify and update their information, including their funding type for the upcoming school year. While the completion and submission of the information update is the responsibility of the charter school, authorizers may encourage charter schools to complete the information update by May 8th, 2023 deadline. Additional information regarding the update will be linked on the resource page. Michelle, material revisions.
Material revisions. Cassie's going to go into this further during the July regional training. However, because there have been lots of questions regarding material revisions, we're going to give you a quick 30,000-foot overview right now. So what is a material revision? Education Code section 47607 states that material revisions to the charter are governed by Education Code 47605. They may occur only upon approval of the chartering authority and can include expanding operations to one or more additional sites or grade levels. But additional examples of what a material revision include, but are not limited to, changing the governance structure of the school, significantly increasing or decreasing enrollment, changing the educational program of the school, for example, going from a classroom-based to a non-classroom or hybrid-based, or changing the retirement system for the school employees. The material revision process may also be addressed through the authorizer's board policy. Most charters only seek material revisions during the renewal process because charter schools requesting a renewal are also required to update their charter to comply with any new laws since the charter was last reviewed. And the same thing happens with material revisions, and they follow the same procedures as renewals or new petitions reviews. So very similar format. So the latest question from the Cassie inbox, with the caveat that you should always consult your legal counsel, is if an existing charter school goes through the material revision process and gets their material revision denied by their district authorizer, does the charter school have the right to appeal their material revision to the county office? Well, the California statute provides mechanisms for the appeal of the denial of a petition for the establishment of a charter and for the appeal of a non-renewal of a charter school. But there's nothing in law at this moment that says you can or you can't. So check with your legal counsel. Matt, school closures.
Always good advice. School closure process and student records. Pursuant to Education Code 47604.32, a charter school authorizer must provide timely notification to the CDE of a school that ceases operations. Please see the CDE Charter School Closures webpage for additional information regarding documentation and notifications of closure action, retention and transfer of records, financial closeout, disposition of liabilities and assets, and the responsibilities of a charter authorizer. Cassie participants have previously asked about the transfer of student records during a closure. Per the CDE Student Records and Transcripts webpage, the CDE does not have access to student records. For public schools, if a school is closed, they are to contact the local district or the County Office of Education. As charter schools are public schools, the question as to how to access student files for closed charter schools is based on the school's charter petition. Most charters, upon closure, will either send their files to the Charter Management Organization, CMO, or sister school in their organization, if applicable, or to the school's authorizer. When files are missing, it becomes necessary to use the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System, or CalPADS. Michelle.
Okay, school opening checklist. Because we just talked about school closures, we thought we'd also add information about school openings. Even though we may not have a lot of them right now, we thought we'd touch on a couple of checklists since a couple of questions came up from the field. SCCOE went back through our archives and found a couple of school opening checklists that authorizers might want to review with their newly approved charter schools so they are ready for opening. The checklists include a facilities checklist and a required documents or information checklist, and those are included on the resource page and in the participant folder. Williams Review. Williams Review, even though this does not really affect authorizers, it's always good to know who's on the Williams list. So effective January 1st, 2022, all schools eligible for the Williams list include all schools that have been designated Comprehensive Support Improvement, or CSI, all schools that have been designated Additional Targeted Support and Improvement, or ATSI, and all schools with 15% or more of schools' teachers that do not possess a valid or clear or preliminary teaching credential. So a lot of the schools this year were designated as ATSI for chronic absenteeism. So schools that weren't on the Williams list last year may be on the Williams list this year because of being designated as ATSI. DOS schools are excluded from the Williams list. But schools that are ATSI and CSI need to have their school plans completed by the start of the school year, by July 1st, or ready for the start of 2023-24. All right, next slide.
Before we go to the next slide, Michelle, there are several questions related to the information you and Matt just presented. So there's one from Zach. It says if a non-classroom based charter wants to add a few attendance tracks to its calendar, this only needs to be stated on the charter school annual survey, correct? Or does it require a material revision?
Well, as one of the examples I just gave is if you're changing your program to go from non-classroom based to hybrid or to a classroom based or vice versa, that would be a material revision. So even though you're wanting to just put it on the annual survey, no, you probably need to talk to your authorizer as well.
Okay. Another question from Seema. What if the county board denies the material revision? How long do they have to appeal to the state board?
So as we said before, there's nothing in statute that talks about an appeal of a material revision. It talks about the appeal of the denial of a new petition and the denial of a renewal. So I can't answer that question because you'll have to talk to your own attorney on that one.
Okay, then a follow-up, I think from Seema as well. Are conditional material revisions recommended, or will
that make oversight complicated? I don't know that there is such a thing as a conditional material revision. I think you're either granting material revision or denying it. I mean, I know that there are some organizations that have said, you know, we're just going to do a pilot to see if it works, and then you'll do the material revision afterwards. That's a question for your attorney, but I would think it would make oversight complicated.
And then a question from Maria. Would adding a CTE strand require a material revision?
I would say if that is a change in your education program, more likely than not, the answer would be yes. And you should probably talk to your authorizer or talk to the charter school that is wanting to change their program. Now, if you are required by law to have a CTE strand and you're simply complying with the law because the law changed, then no, you would not need to do a material revision at that moment. But I don't think that you're required to have a CTE strand. You have to have what's written in your petition. Am I making sense at this moment? I think I am.
Yes. So
bottom line, check with your attorney.
Okay.
Do not quote anything that comes out of this session. We are not lawyers. Do not rely on us for any legal information. Check with your attorney.
All right, before we go to the next slide, you can go to the next slide, but I want to just share that there are a few people who still haven't renamed. If you're wondering how to rename yourself, at the bottom of your screen, you should see participants. Click on participants, find yourself on that list, and then there will be 3 little dots. If you hover over your name, 3 little dots, click on the 3 dots and you'll get a drop down. One of the options will be rename, and you can rename yourself there. Okay, Michael Ammerman from FCMAT is here to discuss with us FASB versus GASB. Michael.
Well, hello, everybody. Just a little bit of background. Before joining FCMAT, which I've worked for now come June 30th will be 6 years, I was their primary forensic consultant, and I had my own accounting practice for around 25, 27 years, auditing school districts, auditing charter schools. Most of my practice revolved around evaluating petitions on the charter school side, but the majority of it was on the forensic side of doing fraud investigations and other types of consulting. But in that process, in the public accounting arena, there's a lot of nonprofit work that's done. And sometimes folks think when a charter school issues an audit report using what looks to them like a different format than what they're used to for their school district, it doesn't seem like it should be allowed, but FASB is also FASB applies to school districts, to just do a broad range of entities. And I'm going to give you my personal opinion as well as why it's more likely that your charter school is going to issue its audited financial statements based on FASB requirements than GASB, because the vast majority of charter schools are essentially umbrellaed under a nonprofit corporation, which most folks associate with a 501c3 nonprofit. And that distinction means if you're comparing the two, the GASB financial report has both accrual and modified accrual reporting in it, because years ago, I think it was GASB 84, wanted to streamline and have governmental reporting include more things like fixed assets and depreciation, rather than just the old general fixed asset account group that we all used to see a long time ago. And now I'm realizing I am getting old. So the bottom line is charter schools, the charter petitions are typically submitted by the nonprofit. Most auditors are auditing the entity that submits the charter petition because the charter is housed within the nonprofit corporation, which also means that the nonprofit corporation can operate its own set of books, take donations, as well as operate the charter school, and even have additional financial information that's not part of the charter school. So, in a nutshell, the reason why I liked auditing charter schools under FASB requirements, and the State Controller's Audit Guide has both sections in it for charters. They can be audited under GASB format or FASB, but most of the general public for the charter schools and their parents really, in my experience, do not understand a GASB audit report. The FASB audit report is much simpler and includes a statement of cash flow and a statement of functional expenses, which those type of documents typically can also tie out to the charter school or the nonprofit's 990 tax return as well. And most of you probably have never really looked at it in depth like I've had to, but the 990 tax return is also going to show that it's going to have a supporting schedule and show that it's a school operating as a school under Internal Revenue Code 509A1. So at the end of the day, without trying to make this a really long explanation, because I've sent to Michelle a summary of everything that I've talked about. It's written out in 2 pages that you can read. But the only confusion that comes about that I've seen is when the audit report in the summary of significant accounting principles under footnote number 1 doesn't sufficiently describe the charter and the nonprofit relationship. And if the charter school name is also the same name as the nonprofit, then folks tend to also get confused. But you can usually go ahead and see how a charter school is being audited in the opinion letter of an audit report, where it says we conducted our audit in accordance with audit standards generally accepted in the United States of America, applicable to financial audits contained in governmental accounting standards. So where the confusion happens is we audit financial statements of schools under governmental accounting standards, and FASB standards, and generally governmental audit standards, GAS, and there's a whole bunch of other acronyms that go along with this. So ultimately, the only ones that I know of that are required to be audited under GASB financial reporting are like dependent charter schools that are, or conversion charter schools that are part of a school district. And they're going to be audited as part of essentially another fund by the auditors of the school district. The one biggest thing that the reason why I really like auditing charter schools under FASB requirements also is because, not because of the simplicity, it also is less complicated for the charters. Anytime I've seen a GASB charter school, they either had to be really have a lot of background in accounting, or I saw a lot of mistakes because they're trying to deal with two sets of books essentially. And it depends on if they have a back office service provider or not. And then it's going to probably cost them more to have that same audit done under GASB reporting. But when I've been confronted with, well, the GASB report includes a management discussion and analysis, I love to point out that the authorizer can always request or require in their MOU with the charter school that they add a management discussion analysis at the beginning of their audit report. What I tell charter schools is this is a plus for you because it gives you a chance to narrate and explain a lot of positive things, or explain in the MD&A things that might not be so favorable, but you can shine a better light on it. And what everyone forgets on the charter school side especially is the MD&A is not an audited piece of the audit report. It says unaudited right on it. So I like the reporting style of FASB. Our opinion is a charter is more appropriately audited under FASB for one simple reason, because it's truly more tied to the nonprofit who is the charter petitioner. You'll see the audit engagement letter to the nonprofit, the management, the disclosures are to the nonprofit, and the opinion is going to be to the nonprofit. It just gets confusing when the nonprofit and the charter have the same name. Boy, I don't even think I took a breath when I said that.
So, Michael, thank you so very much. And all of the information that you just shared, along with that 2-page spread, is included in the resource page.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Next slide, please. All right, it's time for breakout rooms. So, Allison, I think, could you you've already done that, drop the link for the Jamboard into the chat. If you are a facilitator for a breakout room, please grab that link right now before you head over into the breakout rooms. And just as a reminder, if you are an authorizer in the northern region, then you're going to be in group 1 with Tom. If you're an authorizer in the central region, then you're going to be in group 2 with Felicia. If you are an authorizer in the southern region, you'll be in group 3 with Corey. And if you are not an authorizer, if you represent a charter school, a back office support provider, or any other educational partner that specifically does not do authorizing, you are going to be in group 4 with Dave Patterson. Okay, so facilitators, please make sure that you do introductions before you get the conversation started. And if you have anyone who's misassigned, please just email us or have them come back to the main room so that they can be reassigned. And how long are we going to be in there? Group 10, 15?
Let's go 15 and we'll end at 10:50.
Great. All right, so Amy, I think we're ready when you are.
All right, opening now.
All right. I hope everyone had a good conversation. Can we get the facilitators, please, to report out? Let's start with non-authorizers. Dave?
Helps if we're not muted. Some quick, we had ongoing conversations about the material revision process. There was still a good number of questions about it, and often the questions are based on the fact that there isn't a lot of guidance there. So that was certainly part of it. There was one, I thought, interesting part is that, if school is trying to do some transitioning from a certain level of non-classroom, but then they're doing more blended type stuff where it's in fact impacting how they structure their schedule, and that how that would fit. There was also conversations about the SB 739. Some of our colleagues were doing dual duty and enlisting and all that. And the fact there, the latest update there is that when the last person heard is the bill was on what we call on call, and a vote will occur at the end of the hearing today. So unless something else has happened, that's where the bill currently fits. Members, any of that breakout? Anything I'm missing?
Nope, sounds good to me, unless anyone else has something. And Kathleen, I think you got cut off, so if you want to add to the Jam board, please feel free to do that. Let's go to the Northern region.
Okay, well, we had we cheated because we had Michael in on our group, so he was able to give us some answers on the spot. But just in general, I would say for all the groups, questions are still coming up about material revisions. And if we don't have answers for you now or more questions come to mind, please email those to Cassie, because that can help inform our planning for the July training that we're going to do on material revision. So keep those questions coming. We did have one that had to do with the scenario was a school needed to change its calendar in order to meet its minimum minutes, and that raises the obvious question, well, why would that require revision? I mean, shouldn't their petition have addressed that adequately so that the minutes were there? And there was some complicated facts about what they were not doing, but the bottom line, again, generally is to comply with law is not a material revision. If there was some shortcoming in the petition that now needs fixing, maybe that wouldn't require it. There may be some nuance there that we can talk about in July. We had another scenario that came up about, a dependent school, quote unquote, and whether they do an LCAP or because it's shared governance, is it, do they use the SPSA, SSC, that process instead? And generally speaking, the admonition was clarity matters, and you can set those things out in the MOU if it's not already in the petition. But generally speaking, what we always kind of loop back to when we're talking dependent schools is making sure that you're still observing the proprieties of the authorizer charter school relationship, and that there's two separate entities. So figure out, and that would kind of lead you toward LCAP, but make sure you're doing it however you do it in a way that sort of makes clear that there's two entities. And Michael and others who are in the fiscal side have seen situations where the funds are commingled because people aren't sort of keeping those things separate. So watch for that. And that was kind of as far as we got.
Great, thank you. Felicia, Central Region.
Hey, our Central, in our short time together, we were able to talk about four topics for sure. And I'll start with SB 39. That is the very hot topic, and the focus of that look is the potential of an extended waiver for charters who are up for renewal next year. Basic answer to that is stay tuned, because nothing has been decided yet. It is currently in process, and we may find out something toward the end of June when the budget is passed, but nothing is certain yet. We discussed cyclical monitoring, which is a requirement from CDE, and how it applies to small LEAs. I have some schools that are under that process, and we wanted to learn a little bit more about that, because it's been ongoing this year, and it is a new process that was started at the beginning of this year. We also talked about the LCAP. Just wanted to know if there were any changes, and we discussed that a little bit. And then finally, I think we touched upon developing or executing MOUs, and a question about if you are served a universal complaint as a SELPA provider and an authorizer, what are the ed codes that legal services should be using to inform their responses? And I think that is just about it. Team, is there anything else I missed? Would you like to add anything? All right, I think we're good.
Great, thank you, Felicia. And Corey.
All right, well, material revisions continue to be a hot topic, and so questions around Araceli brought up too on appeals of a material revision if it wasn't passed. So I think, yeah, that would be a hot topic that will be continued. One thing I'll just drop really quickly in the chat, kind of questions around nonprofits. So in the chat, I just shared with my group the two tools that I go to looking at nonprofits and 990s, Corporation Wiki, and then GuideStar for nonprofits. So if you want more information, you could email me about that, but they're pretty easy to straightforward to use for nonprofits. But we had a really robust group of about 25. So we had limited topics, but it was great to see everybody.
Great, thank you, Corey. All right, thanks everyone for participating in our breakout groups, and things that are outstanding, we will try to get answers for you and bring those back to a future charter chat or incorporate them into a quarterly regional training. So next slide, well, actually this slide is for the meeting feedback survey. So we'd like to know how this meeting went for you. Please take a look at or access the link in the chat and take 2 minutes to fill out our survey for this meeting. And next slide, please. Is anyone looking at the survey?
So I will say that there was a question that popped up in the survey saying it'd be really helpful to hear all the speaker notes attached to the slides. Those are all on the resource page. So we give you all the ad information, and it's the same resource, it's the same folder at every single meeting.
And Allison is recommending that you bookmark the folder so that you have access to it on an ongoing basis. All right. So hopefully you've taken a few minutes to complete our survey for this session. And now we want to open it up to just general questions that you might have in the next minute. Or actually, I don't know. Do we want to do questions, or do we want to do the last few slides?
Yeah, maybe let's go to the last ones, and everybody knows where to reach us. So we encourage the use of that Cassie email address to keep them coming.
All right. And then, so we have an annual survey as well. The link is here. And we are encouraging everyone who is an authorizer to complete that survey to give us information about how Cassie can support you. And that link has been dropped into the chat. Next slide, please. So our upcoming events. So next month, our charter chat is on May 31st from 10 to 11. That is going to be the last Wednesday of the month. And then, Tom, do you want to talk about the?
Yeah, people know that the CCAP conference is coming. I think just a note for small authorizers. We are doing the Cassie pre-conference, which is the 101, 2 half days, dive into welcome to authorizing. We split it into 2 days so that it would be more digestible, but that requires a hotel night, and we will reimburse, if you're a small authorizer, the criteria are on the website, that night's hotel lodging, but half of those are taken up. So if you're a small authorizer and thinking of coming, get yourself in there and register and ask for the hotel, because we'll get you set up on that.
Great. Next slide, please. What I'm noticing is that we don't have any information on here about the quarterly regional training in July, but I think we can put that in the resource page, and you'll also get an email about that if you're on our listserv. So just want to point out that our colleagues at the San Diego County Office of Education, Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, and San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools will be putting on a charter school authorizer connection workshop on May 12th from 9 to 11. The link will be in the resource page and on the slides, so you can register using that link. And finally, next slide is our contact information. And it is 11:02, and I want to say thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.